Taco giving wasn't simplified by the secret chamber. I just think that they're seeking people of distinguished lineage will derive their livelihood from it in secret. A level close to this is giving to a charity.
And he gives 8 levels. We're not going to focus on the lower levels. We're going to focus on the highest. The highest he mentions is A, giving someone a job. B is investing in them. You know, hey, I want to open up a restaurant. You invest in them. Or C, you give them a loan, particularly a loan that has to do with income in some way. Now, by the way, I mean, Maimonides is discussing the laws of tzedakah as they pertain to Jews. There are other places in Torah that discuss tzedakah that one should give to everyone. So if that is the question that you have in mind, yes, there is a form of tzedakah to everyone. Here it's discussing what begins in the community, and Maimonides lists these 8. Now you might say that the highest form doesn't seem like tzedakah. It seems like something else.
Alone does not seem like.
So we're going to get there. We're going to get there. But yeah, this is, you know, so before we go any deeper, if you think about the amount of effort and time we put in and money we give in tzedakah, first and foremost, it's worthwhile to invest time in helping other people get jobs. There's no greater form of that. I know that, thank God, in the last month I was worthy. I merited to, in some small way, not because of anything I did, but people that I know who were looking for someone, and I was able to make the connection. And thank God, 2 people this month I was able to help, and I've never done this before, and I got 2 in a month. It's such a great, and I wasn't the one, I was just the connector there. But that's it feels so good. I mean, thank God, you know, thank God and then we need more of that. We need more of that. So Maimonides actually lists that. So before we go any deeper, just know that if you ever have the ability to do that, you are fulfilling the highest form of tzedakah.
Even as an employer, does that count?
Oh, because you're getting something from it as. Yeah, you help someone get a job.
Instead of giving someone a fish, it's better than buying
exactly. And teach them.
So
yeah,
but moving on a little bit, I don't comprehend how a loan is at the same level.
Thank you.
And the reason for that is someone who doesn't have income and you give them a loan. Okay, you've helped them in the short term and given them a new obligation that they're not able to meet.
Correct. Yeah. So we're going to have to get there.
It may be a long-term thing if they invest in a business and make a living later. It doesn't necessarily have to be a short.
Well, investing in their business is one thing, which is if the business fails, you don't get your money back. That's kind of the arrangement of you invest in a business.
Right. So that's different than a loan.
A loan, you're expecting to get your money back.
Mm-hmm.
With interest.
Well, no. The Parsha is in a moment going to say no interest. However, but let's just go to your question. To your question was, it does not seem to be much of tzedakah. What we're going to say a little bit later in the class is part of this is the way the Parsha continues. And we're going to, which, let's actually, you mentioned it already. So let's go straight to the verse in the Parsha, 122, on page 122, text 6a. You already mentioned it, Jersey, so we're sort of going to do this class a little bit differently than the order. Why don't you read? This is the verse in the Parsha itself.
Yes. When you lend money to my people, to the poor person who is with you, you shall not behave toward him as a lender. You shall not impose interest upon him.
So imposing interest, I understand. That's black and white. What does it mean you shouldn't behave as a lender? That's exactly what you're doing. You're lending money. It's an odd verse. Well, when you lend money, don't be a lender. You should not impose interest.
Well, so, like a lender might want collateral, and they might want to check up on the ability to repay and be kind of lording it. No, that's not right. But kind of supervising over the individual.
Correct. And here it's asking that you give the loan, but in the back of your mind, there is a component of tzedakah over there. What is that component? Number one, you're not going to be a lender. In the event, well, first of all, no interest. Second of all, you're not chasing after the person in a humiliating manner. Third of all, in the event that you know right now that that person is unable to pay, you're actually going to cease asking until they're able to. That's yeah.
It was a different perception many years ago when there were Jewish funds set up for this. If you got any interest at all, or you didn't get paid back at all, it was okay. It's just you expected the person that made the living to pay it forward and add to the fund later.
And that's what we're discussing
It's not
today.
2017, First Citizens or Wells Fargo. It's not that mindset.
But that's what the parsha is discussing, and in a way, there's still a need for that today, Dennis. I mean, I get calls often from people, and unfortunately, I'm not in A, the position, or B, don't have the structure to be able to do that. But for many years, all Jewish communities had what was called a free loan society. It was one of the first things that they had set up. Was in Hebrew it's called a gemach, or a free loan society. So look at text 7, who's discussing this, Pam.
Praiseworthy is he who looks after the poor. On a day of calamity, God will rescue him. What is the nature of this concern? One should pay the poor, on account of which God will rescue the giver from calamity. If one lends money to a poor person and the lender knows that the borrower has nothing with which to pay back, if he sees him walking, the lender should go to the other way, lest he think that he wants to inquire about the loan.
So not only are you not chasing after him, not only are you not being first citizen and sending letters in the mail, you're actually going to the other extreme and avoiding confrontation with the person as to not humiliate them. That is unheard of. That's unheard of. I mean, you are the lender, right? Well, that's what the verse means. Don't be a lender. So on one hand, you are giving the loan. On the other hand, the parsha is saying you are acknowledging a reality. Now, the person, we're not talking today about the responsibilities of the borrower. Mm-hmm. There are other places in Torah that discuss the responsibilities of the borrower. And yes, the borrower must pay back. And we're not discussing when the person's going on vacations and we're discussing the responsibilities of the lender. And the responsibilities of the lender is such that in the event the other person can't pay back, you're not continuing to press. And yes, if you feel in your spirit that you have the ability to absolve that loan, you write it off as tzedakah. That is the type of loan that we're discussing. That is why Maimonides considers it tzedakah. So it's in a sense, it's tzedakah as a backup. And that's why you can see how it fits as number one in Maimonides' levels. From the perspective of the person borrowing it, there is not humiliation at that point, because all he's doing is getting a loan. From the perspective of the lender, however, in the back of their mind, they are acknowledging a reality, and they are prepared somewhat for a reality in which this has to be tzedakah. And here, it's even greater than tzedakah in two ways. A is you're not embarrassing, and B is this is really demanding a lot of faith in you, because this might be this could be a decent amount of money, and you're putting a lot of trust in the person, hopefully to pay, while at the same time knowing you have no ability to chase after it.
So,
yeah,
if fortune turns towards the borrower and he's doing pretty well, can you then remind him of his loan?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, after you've absolved it?
No. Well.
You've been.
Yes. Independent of if you kind of wrote it off in your head, you still have a loan out there.
Correct.
And you're supposed to leave the indigent guy alone.
Correct.
But if he's now doing pretty well, but hasn't gotten around to paying you back, can you then?
Yeah. And you notice the verse there says, the text that we just read, text 6, was discussing a situation where you know he cannot pay. You need to avoid him. Right. But if you know that he is able to pay, yes, you can. I think unless you put something in writing saying you have absolved the loan.
Right.
At this point, it is, in your mind, you're sort of writing it off as a tzedakah expense. And yes, in the laws of tithing, and there's a section of Judaism that discusses, this can at that point be considered tzedakah. You can write it off as your charity. Yeah. And you could have intended that all along, but you've done it in the most noble manner to the individual in that they're still hoping it's a loan. They don't view it as I took. Yeah, and that is why this was always, skipping around the text today. This was always the way Jewish communities operated. I'll take a question in one moment, but the Chafetz Chaim writes, Pam, text 9.
Wait, I just read.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. The Chafetz Chaim writes in text 9.
Those who do not have the
Oh, I
ability.
thought you said you just read. Oh, you did?
I just read,
Oh,
so it's her
yeah.
turn. Yeah.
Those.
Who do not have the ability to regularly issue free loans may join together with others and make a free loan society, such as the custom amongst Jewish communities throughout the world, for there to be a free loan society in nearly every city.
So it's
That's what he was
interesting.
saying.
Yeah, that's what you were saying. You remember that, Dennis? And
Alfred Gordon's family in Durham did a lot of that.
really,
Statistics.
really, do they? Is that still?
Well, they're
I
deceased.
think
now.
Sherry also does it. They'll post
No,
that
no.
On a very
there's
small.
a family in trouble. You don't know who the family is.
Yeah.
And you give charity for that purpose. So
That's
they don't
nice.
know who you are. You don't know.
Oh,
who
that's
they
the
are.
lower. That's not a free loan. That's
No,
that's
that's
correct.
right.
That is talking about Maimonides' other levels where you don't know who you're going to.
I have a question in verse 7. I loaned Dennis money and and realize he's reached a point where he can't pay me back.
Yep.
Which is more humiliating? I disagree with it. If I remain friendly with Dennis and talk to him and act just like before the loan, isn't that less humiliating
Then avoiding
than
them.
avoiding him? And
Correct.
this
I
is
was thinking that
saying
too.
walk
Yeah.
across the street.
This is an ethical work, Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid, not a legal work. As such, I don't think it's black and white. I think he's saying if you know the confrontation is, it's not black and white, Hal. If you know that at this point in time hanging out with him is more comfortable, by all means do it. He is saying that if you know that the confrontation will be awkward, don't do it at that time. If you know he's having a bad day and right now it's not the time to bump into Mr. Hal, don't do that. So again, Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid is an ethical work, not a,
But
reminds me
now
of
the
the
borrower would turn around and walk the other way.
reminds me of the teacher that is teaching a class and teaching subtraction and talks to that kid and says, hey, imagine your dad borrowed $1,000 from me and every month the deal was that he has to pay $100 after 4 months. How much does he still have to pay? So the kid says $1,000. And the teacher says, clearly you have not been listening to anything this class. To which the kid says, clearly you don't know my father. So we're not discussing the responsibilities of the borrower. We're discussing the mitzvah. And Maimonides mentions this as a mitzvah, as the highest form of mitzvah, because yes, it is a type of loan that takes the most from the guy giving, or the woman giving, because there's a real sense of uncertainty whether you're going to get it back. You might be investing in someone who's a little bit of a schlemazel. He hasn't had the best of luck so far in his businesses. You might feel this is a significant sum, and yet we're still asked to do it. And on this verse, the Midrash writes specifically on the lending of the money. Hal, text 2, going back to the earlier text. When you lend money,
To my people, fortunate is he who withstands his test. For there is no creation whom the Holy One, blessed be he, does not test. The wealthy person, God tests him whether his hand will be open to the poor and lend him money.
okay. So this is a form of a test, nisayon. We all ask God, we want this form of test, not the other forms of tests. But I like that idea. There's no creation who doesn't have challenges. The question is, are they going to be challenges of plenty, or God forbid the opposite?
So does this mean that it is better to lend than to just outright give?
Depends whom. Depends whom, I think. If you know for this individual right now, I think I've certainly in my line of work have been in situations where someone comes through hard times. Thank God they've never had to take before.
Mm-hmm.
And by constructing this in the form of somewhat of a, even though the giver knows, that there's a chance he won't see it again, that actually is more comfortable for the person.
You have to have the right connection with God, and some of this is really not important.
If
Whether they pay
you,
you back or they don't pay you back.
I mean, that's what this mitzvah here is. But that takes a lot of faith, and that's what text 2 says.
Absolutely.
It takes a huge amount of faith to believe you'll be all right, and you don't know if you're going to get it back. Now, when it comes to many other times of tzedakah, and you just give the check, right?
Mhm.
To the Chabad, you don't say, I want it back.
I'm
But we're talking.
invested.
But when it comes to some poor individuals, I think particularly when this is someone who is not used to doing this, they fell on hard times, they lost a job, they had an unusual expense, they hope that with God's help to get back on their feet. The best way to go about doing it is through a loan, but realizing that there's a chance they won't be able to pay back. And it would be nice to be able to introduce this to the community, whether Jewish Federation or someone being able to do this, a group of people, a federation, but it's a tremendous mitzvah. All right, so the Medrash says this is a test. The Midrash writes God is waiting to see whether or not we're going to do it, and that applies to all levels of tzedakah. Now, when it comes to tzedakah, there's two different words used in the Torah. And we're going to now quote from the end of the Torah, Devarim, text 3a and 3b. And I'd never seen this distinction before. I've always looked at it one way. I've never seen it both ways. And this is a talk of the Rebbe I've never seen before. Text 3a.
Then you shall observe the feast of Shavuot for the Lord your God, offering your free will contribution according as the Lord your God has blessed you.
So this is about the holiday of Shavuot. And while you're there, make sure to dispense money in a very free will, be giving donations at a time of a holiday. It uses a Hebrew word nidava. Nidava means free will. It means giving just because you feel so. It means not for any reason. You are doing it out of your loving heart. Not that you have to, not that in any way the person is entitled to, but as a nidava. There are other times, however, and we can skip text 3b, it means just generosity of your heart. The verse then continues, albeit 7 verses later on, using a different word. Right?
Each with his own gift according to the blessing that the Lord your God has bestowed upon you.
Matana. What's a matana in Hebrew? A present, a gift. Sometimes in the Torah where it discusses tzedakah, it uses the word gift. Most famously will be in 3 weeks, we celebrate the holiday of Purim. There are 4 mitzvot of Purim: reading the Megillah, having a party, sending foods to friends, and giving gifts to the poor. That actually is the Hebrew. Matanot le'evyonim, gifts to the poor. It doesn't use the word donate, gifts to the poor. And throughout the Torah, sometimes it uses this word nidava, which is like a free will kind of generosity of the heart. Sometimes it uses the word matana. A matana is what you do when you go to a wedding. Matana is what you do at a birthday party. A matana is what you give to your doctor in December. Or, I mean, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That
No, we don't know what you mean by giving a gift to your doctor. None of us know what you mean.
If it was 1900, you give them a chicken.
because in the old days you gave him a chicken.
We're
You gave him a
sending
chicken.
yeah.
So what would the Torah perhaps be suggesting? But what is the difference between the word matana and nidava when it comes to tzedakah? We're going to go back to the loans a little bit later. We jumped ahead of ourselves that loans are often tzedakah also. What might be the difference? And don't focus too much on the text. I'm going to take this in a different direction than some of these texts here today. What would be the difference whether you say nidava or matana?
One is obligation, one is pleasure.
So a matana, are you saying free will is I'm doing it just because? A matana, even though you're doing it, usually when we give a gift, not always, but there's some sense of expectation, some sense of reciprocity. Text 4c writes that when it comes to, you were going to say the other way around.
No,
Well, let's do 4c
okay.
first. The Talmud, when it describes what the legal definition of a matana is, and again, this is in a very different text, but it's just about that word. When that word is used in Hebrew, this doesn't sound very altruistic, but it says it as it is. Dennis, what does it say for C?
If he had not received benefit from him, he would not have given him a gift.
Amatana is, you got something, you give something. It's the way the world works. It's that sense of expectation, that sense of entitlement. So there are times in the Torah where it uses the word matana for tzedakah, as if they're entitled. They've done something. And there are times in the Torah where it uses the word nedavah. When you go to a wedding, you don't have to give a present. You don't have to. But you pretty much do, right? You pretty much do these days. And by using that word matana, the Torah is saying you pretty much do. And that is why when Maimonides lists these types of tzedakah, what is the lowest form? We didn't go there. What is the lowest form?
It's when you kind of grudgingly give.
Yeah, give unhappily. Give unhappily. Give unhappily. With the,
No, but I thought that was not the lowest, because the important thing is when you actually give, because you know you want to give.
I didn't know we're still live here.
We are.
In a happy way. You shouldn't, excuse me, I'm giving. I'm giving. What difference does it make? I do it happily, I do it not happily. The fact that Torah can ask of us or obligate us to give in a happy way seems to imply that, yeah, there's a responsibility here. It's an obligation here. As you said it, Pam, you sort of have to. How you said isn't the lowest form not giving it. Who asked about that? Oh, you did, Pam.
No, because I was saying that, like even if you don't want to give, the fact that you give, happy, yeah, it's the best, but unhappy is also good.
And that is why it's still a form of tzedakah.
Right.
You're right. And as someone once said, sometimes happy with a lower amount and unhappy with a higher amount, at the end of the day, the person cares about the fact that the mitzvah was done. That being said, why does Maimonides have these levels, Pam? If kavanah didn't matter, why would Maimonides list these?
Oh, it does matter. Everything matters. Everything revolves around kavanah, right?
So kavanah does matter. So the fact that Maimonides writes it is because it's not just a donation, but it is a gift. And the same way when it comes to a gift, imagine being at a wedding. All right, take the thing. You would never do that. A gift is one done with a smile. A gift is one done with a lot of love. So tzedakah is a gift. Tzedakah is expectation. So our questions here are, it's hard to look at it that way. It's A. And B is, if we are to look at it that way, then why sometimes does the Torah use the word nedavah? Right? If it's a matanah, free will, no sense of expectation, no sense of entitlement, just coming because I feel like it. Why would the Torah use both different expressions? Yes, Hal?
To me, a gift is a purposeful thing to an individual or group, where free will is, in a crowd of people, and I'm just going to give charity to this. I don't know them. They just seem like they need it. So on my free will, I'm giving it. I expect no. You don't expect anything. I don't think you expect anything in turn with a gift either. But one
You do
is
expect the thank you part.
yeah. One is to me a gift is I am giving it to you.
Right. So I like that might work well in the English, Hal. The problem is in the Hebrew, in the very same set of verses, it uses both the word matana and nedavah in the same context. So yeah, that could be true. There are some opportunities when you went up to Jerusalem, it would be purposeful in the people you know, and sometimes it's more random.
Well, if you give it to the person
That's more random.
That's on the street.
Correct.
That's on free will.
But the fact, so the Rebbe says the fact that both words are used different times throughout the Torah seems to suggest that within our tzedakah, there are times in our life that it's more a nedavah, times more of a matana, as we will come to explain. Okay. So we've now, yeah.
In some ways, reading some of this, it makes me think that a lot of people could think that if you're wealthy, you could buy your way to heaven. You know, because you keep giving gifts, and you can see how the Catholic Church did. That's how they encourage the rich.
What's wrong?
So-
What's wrong? I mean, giving tzedakah is a beautiful thing.
But not, I mean, in that case, you can see that it wasn't a beautiful thing. It was
That
abuse
is
of
why
power.
kavanah comes into play. Because kavanah means the intent,
Kind
the love and the happiness you have when you give. Just because you are rich and you can give a lot of money doesn't mean you're giving it with that intent.
With that intent.
Whereas
It's
a
a
poor
gift
person that gives sometimes is giving with that intent. So
Correct.
when God is measuring things,
to get
it's
an
not
intent
the
to get
amount,
nothing back,
it's-
including a trip.
it's your
It's a
intent.
gift
Right.
because you expect a thank you note back.
So what does it mean that, let's start with, before we speak about the nidava, let's talk about the matana. Why would it be that Torah would consider at times tzedakah to be a matana, that entitlement expectation? We've discussed this many times. The very fact that we use the word tzedakah is odd, because what does the word tzedek mean in Hebrew?
Right.
Right.
True.
Tzaddik.
Tzaddik is righteous. What else does the word tzedek mean in Hebrew? Just. It means the word just. Tzedek tirdo. You should surely pursue justice. The same word righteousness is also justice.
Could also mean responsibility.
Yes, and that would be the difference. It's when we say justice, it's the thing you gotta do. That's a sense of expectation. You are expected, you are responsible to do that which is just. So when Torah looks at the mitzvah of tzedakah, it does not look at it in a sense of, you're the greatest gift to mankind. You've taken something that is yours and now you're giving it away. That's incredible. Rather, Torah is looking at it as, God blessed you with these means. It is the just, it is the right and the righteous, but also just to give this. Because that is the very reason why you have been given it in the first place. And
Well, do that. What does this have to do with me?
okay,
Because it's kind
we're
of
skipping
ungrateful.
around some of these texts over here, and the Rebbe writes over here when it comes to the word tzedakah, text 14 now, text 14. Do this in the words of the Rebbe. A Jersey, text 14.
In other languages, tzedakah is rendered as a term associated with kindness or benevolence.
Benevolence, right.
In English, it is rendered as charity.
And charity, what does charity mean? Benevolence. I'm so nice that I'm giving. He says, however,
However, among the Jewish people, it is called tzedakah, from the word tzedek, righteousness. There is a polar difference between two terms. Charity indicates that it is underserved by its recipient, and that its giver is a good-hearted person for giving so benevolently. However, righteousness means that one is obligated to give to someone else, since he knows that he isn't giving of his own, but that God has given him the money as a deposit to give to someone else.
so the word tzedakah as opposed to charity, and I think I mention this every year at the high holiday time. It bothers me how teshuvah, tefillah, and tzedakah is translated the way it is. Each one is mistranslated. Tzedakah doesn't mean charity. The Rebbe says it's polar opposites. Charity does not denote a sense of you are responsible for it. Tzedakah does. Tzedakah means it's the righteous thing, it's the just thing. You feel truthfully, you honestly believe that Hashem has deposited this money to you in order that you can take care of your family, but then give it to everyone else. That is your mindset from the very beginning. And when you do that, you're just doing with the reason why it was given to you in the first place. As a wealthy philanthropist once said, I heard this from him just 2 months ago. He said, what changed the way I give tzedakah is when I started looking at it as I'm on a 90% commission from God. He said, once I got that, my life, everything I gave changed. This is from a philanthropist who's given away millions. And he said that's what changed in me when I felt now I'm on a 90% commission from God, because I felt that from the beginning, I'm giving this in order to give tzedakah. That would be a tzedakah mindset, that would be a tzedakah mindset, not a charity mindset. So now, we also know that tzedakah is the one mitzvah where, and although kavanah is important, it is okay to feel that you're going to be blessed for it. There's a beautiful verse in Hosea 12a that talks about tzedakah. This is from Hosea. Then it uses an expression to sow tzedakah. Zera means to plant. Where are we up to in the reading? 12a, Pam. Yeah. I'm skipping around today. I'm sorry. 12a. Hosea chapter 10.
Sow righteousness for yourselves, reap according to loving kindness, plow yourselves a plowing, and it is time to seek the Lord until he comes and instructs you in righteousness.
What is the metaphor of planting and plowing? So the Chafetz Chaim makes a profound insight. When you plant seeds, the goal is that you don't get back the same seeds that you planted. No one would go through the bother of yielding a produce that would be the same as what they planted. Rather, 12b, Pam, a person
might wish to sow his field, even though at the time of sowing casts his grain seeds to the earth. For he is nevertheless certain that eventually 100 times more will grow. So too one should desire to give charity, and can know with certainty that God will bless him for this mitzvah, and his possessions will increase many times over.
Because of the belief that when Hashem sees that you are doing with what you're doing what you were supposed to do with what you were given, all that means is now God will bank with you more. Hashem will bank with you more because you are doing the right thing. So it's not like I'm giving tzedakah and therefore I'm going to earn brownie points and then I'm going to therefore be blessed more. No, it's not so complicated. It's very simple. God uses us to be distributors of good in the world. And when God sees that we are doing our job properly, then Hashem chooses to invest in us more. That's all. That's all. But that is with the perspective of tzedakah. That is with the perspective of responsibility. That ties into which word? Nedavar, matana. Matana. Absolutely, it's a matana. There is an expectation. There is some sense of entitlement in that. This is what you're supposed to be doing. So now the Rebbe says, so what's the nedava about? What's the nedava about? We get matana. Every time in Torah it should use the word matana. So what the Rebbe comes up with is a fascinating idea. If someone thank God, is in a position in which they clearly see how they have more than what they need for themselves to give. So it's very obvious that God gave this to me in order that I take some for myself and I distribute the rest to everyone else. That's a matana. What happens if someone is in a situation where it's a little bit more challenging? It's a little bit more difficult. They don't clearly see that they're being blessed so tremendously right now that they are in the ability to be the distributors of good. It's hard to give at a time like that. What kind of giving is that? Nedava. You see? You don't feel that if you've been blessed with, as we call it, access. Access means extra. Not extra after all the luxuries, but in general, thank God you have extra. That would be you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. But in those times where you feel you're going beyond what you can be doing, whether it's the amount is beyond, or whether you right now are not in a position to be able to give so easily, that is where the word nedava is. God, this one's for you. This is not one where I easily see that sense. So the Rebbe writes over here, text 15.
I'm getting there. When a Jew fulfills the commandment to give as a free will contribution,
And the word for that is nedava. Yeah.
and without paying any regard to whether he has proper means, he nevertheless donates to various charitable causes, to the Levi, the convert, the orphan, and the widow.
That is the word that the verse used. Remember, first time the verse used the word nidava. 7 verses later, it used the word matana. So the Rebbe reads this as if the person goes and gives, even though it's difficult, even though they may feel they're not really able to. Keep on reading.
With an open hand and more than his means. To this God says that he will give as a gift, that it will no longer take an act of benevolence to give, but that he will be able to give simply in the manner one gives a gift.
So, exactly. So the person is rewarded in a sense to be able to be in a position now where when he gives tzedakah, it is as a matana, which is A and B, yeah.
On account of his great wealth, he will not need to be generous to give. And B, he will have the goodwill to give with a cheerful smile in the generous manner people give gifts.
Yeah, and this takes a tremendous amount of faith. I think we talk about emunah and faith so much. Tzedakah is faith in practice. Faith in theory, I can tell you, we have a lot of classes about faith in theory, right? What does it mean to believe? But when you give, that is faith in practice. And this is hard. It's a leap. But the Rebbe really meant these words when he would say this promise about giving. There was people who encountered such stories in their life that when they gave in a way that was a nidava, it was hard for them. Later they experienced blessings that they would be able to give words of matana, where they felt it's the right thing to do, it's the just thing to do. They're able to give it in a more happy manner than that. So the Rebbe would often feel the pay forward kind of thing, in the sense of give now and then you'll be able to get it. And this is a shocking letter of the Rebbe in text 16, where the Rebbe wrote about this to someone. It's an anonymous letter, and the fact that the Rebbe would write this to someone, the Rebbe knew his audience. Obviously, this person was able to hear such a message. Usually, it's not recommendation for usually when you receive a donation, you say thank you. You don't criticize the amount was not large enough. But look at this letter of the Rebbe, text 16.
For God, there are two options. The first way is for him to give money, and then watch how much of that is set aside for tzedakah. The second way is to first give tzedakah more than is ever possible. God will not remain indebted and will return the donation sum many times over. Therefore, when I saw the amount on the check, I wondered why you were having mercy on God. Why would you care about the size of the check when the Holy One, blessed be He, will give you immeasurably more?
Don't be so nice on God, the Rebbe says. I mean, this is no one else could pull off such a letter. Don't have so much pity on God. Don't worry, God's means are just fine. If you give more, Hashem will allow you to be able to give more as well. That is the level of emunah that the Rebbe lived with. For him, this was not an idea, but this was black and white. For us, it's more of a stretch. But I think it is good to just leave class with the two ideas. Breaking this down, number one is the importance of helping people either find jobs or give loans, and giving loans in a way where even if you don't necessarily see it back, it's tzedakah. And number two is to really gain an understanding that the word tzedakah doesn't mean charity. That's not what the word means. It means just and righteous. And that we have this idea that certainly there are times where we don't feel it that way. There are times where we feel it's harder, and the Torah says, if you give when it's harder, Hashem will bless you to be able to give when it is easier as well. So, l'chaim, that we should all be in the position to be able to be God's distributors of good in the world.
You know, that brings up then, what about the poor person who has no way? Isn't giving your time as valuable as giving money?
So you've asked, there is a idea in Torah where no matter who you are, you have to be in the giving end of things.
Mm-hmm. There's
There's no idea that everyone's on the receiving end. That's why even a poor person should give some tzedakah. They don't give the 10% because there's a law that if giving 10% will require you to thereby borrow more, that's not good. But they're supposed to give something, and yes, absolutely help in other ways with time and energy and whatnot if they cannot give.
And
But in Judaism, tzedakah is seen more than just a virtue. It's that's how we are partners with Hashem in creation. God created a world. It didn't have to be this way. Why couldn't God have created a world in which
everything was so easy
Yeah.
and kind.
Instead there are some with more and some are less, and it's hard. That's our ability to be partners with the Creator. That's when we can be creators in a sense. And the mindset we should always have is, thank God I'm able to be on the giving end and not have to be on the receiving end. Thank God I'm in this position, Baruch Hashem. And it's something to think about. And those that do give, and we all give, we should be able to not just see these ideas in the text, but to really experience it in our lives. So l'chaim for that. All right, we'll hold it here. I don't know if the stream worked or not.
Yes, it did. Yes, can you hear me?
We can, Amnon. Wow.
Okay, so first of all, Debbie asked, what's the subject today? Because I missed it and everybody missed it. So what's the subject? Is it tzedakah?
God's custodians.
God's custodians.
Yes.
Okay, Debbie, you got it now. Okay.
Thank you so. Have a wonderful week, everyone, and thank you to Amnon Nissan for finding a way to broadcast this. Despite the challenges along the way, we will look into what caused the glitch and be back same time, same place next week. Everyone have a wonderful week.
You're tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section on nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Atomos.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.